Hello and welcome. I'm Revd Tim, and it's great to be speaking to years 1 and 2 at the Grove Infant and Nursery School. I wonder how many of you have an Advent calendar? I know I do. How many of you have a chocolate Advent calendar? And do you know what an Advent calendar is for? You might like to share that now with your class. Of course, it's counting down to Christmas, and at the end of the Advent calendar we know it's Christmas Day. But for Christians, Advent also has another meaning, and that is not just celebrating when Jesus came first of all, but also that he might come again and transform the world. So in this video I'm just going to show you some of the things we have both inside and outside of church, which help us remember what this season is all about. So the first thing I'd like to stop and look at is behind me, this banner of hope on our hedge. You may have seen it as you've walked past, but you might wonder why. Well, at Advent we remember those times in the past for the people of Israel when they've been in dark times, but God has always provided hope and comfort. And so for us, Advent is a season of hope, not just hope for Christmas Day, but hope that God will never abandon us and will always be with us. But God asks us to have hope in him and hope that we might change the world. So as you walk inside, you might want to think about, what is it that I hope for today that the world might be different? So as we come inside, I wonder what you hope for. Maybe a world full of peace, or a world without hunger, or where everyone was healthy. That's what part of Advent is about for Christians, but God asks us to take a part. And the other thing is, we might wonder why that is so. Why is there that hope for the world? And if you come into the west end of the church here, up around, you'll notice some banners, and they're actually the 6 days of creation, from God creating the light right round to God creating humankind. And he created humankind in his image. A male and female he created them. That's from Genesis. We're all created in God's image, and therefore we all deserve God's love and justice and compassion. So as you go into St. John's, and in most churches, you'll see some things that you only see at certain times of year. And this is one thing you will see in a lot of churches. Do anyone know what it is? It's an Advent wreath. And you'll note it has different coloured candles and lots of greenery. I wonder if anyone knows what these candles mean. Well, the wreath is a circle which represents the unending love of God. And I wonder if you're sitting in the pews when you come to visit, you might look around and see if you can see any other circles. The greenery is a reminder that God's love is everlasting, just like the greenery that we see around us. Can you see any greenery in church? But you'll note there's no flowers, because Advent is not a time of celebration, it's not a big festival, it's a time of preparation for fasting and prayer. You'll note here we have 5 candles. Someone may like to guess what they mean. We have, each candle represents the 4 Sundays of Advent, and the white candle is Christmas. They each have different meanings. We could have the patriarchs, so people like Abraham and Jacob and Isaac, who are figures in the Old Testament, the prophets, people who showed God's way throughout the Old Testament. We have John the Baptist, and I'll show you a picture of John the Baptist in a minute because he's very important to this church because he's our patron saint. And then we also have a Mary, who is the mother of God, mother of Jesus. But they also have different meanings. Sometimes they can mean peace, joy, love, and hope. So that's the Advent wreath. Another thing that's unique about St. John's is that we have blue as our colour in church. You'll see it on the altar pulpit, and you'll see it on the pulpit on the altar. And the reason for that is that blue is a very ancient colour, symbolising hope. if you've ever got up to watch the sunrise, just before the sun comes up, the colours changes from black through to light blue, and you get this dark blue just as the sun's about to rise. So it's a very hopeful, expectant season. All these things are telling us about what's going on in church and the type of time of year it is for us. I was wondering if you can see who this person is behind me. He's on the left-hand side of the pews, if you're in church. This is John the Baptist. He's the one who prepared the way for Jesus, who made him known and who baptized him as well. But he was a bit of a unkempt, he was a bit of a person who lived in the wilderness. So he wore a camel skin coat, he ate locusts, and as you can see, his hair was a bit of a mess. And so it's good to think about during Advent, how do we prepare our way for God in our lives? But also to think, who are the people that prepare your way, that help you become the person God made you to be? So I've come through into the Ladies' Chapel at St. John's, a special chapel in honour of Mary, the mother of Jesus. So we've seen already the candles and the colours in church that help tell people the season that we're in the church. Behind me are some stained glass windows, which is another way of telling the story. And because we're in the Lady Chapel, they refer to two very important parts of the Christmas story. I'll just show you an up-close image now. So there's one here. Now I wonder if you look on here, you can see Mary on the left, and on the right is the Archangel Gabriel, and there's a dove above her which symbolises the Holy Spirit, and she is telling Mary that she is going to bear a son, and he's going to be the Son of the Most High, and she's going to be called Jesus. And on the other side, you can see that on the right-hand side is Mary with the baby Jesus, and you can see Joseph. And Joseph is carrying a lantern because one of the meanings of Jesus, he's the light of the world. Both those two, we call them the Annunciation, which is the one where the angel comes to Jesus, and the Incarnation, that God is with us. And they're really two very important parts for Christians, that God became to be like us. So, thank you so much for joining me on this video, and I think you're now going to go and visit St. John's to have a look for some of these things yourself. So let's remind you what we're going to look for. Can we see as we arrive the hope, the banner of hope, and think about the hope we have for the world? When we come inside, can we see the candles, the greenery and the circles? Can we see the different colour of the altar and on the pulpit? And then when we go into the Lady Chapel, can we see the stained glass windows, telling of the moment when Mary knew she was going to bear a Jesus, but also the moment when Jesus was born. And finally, if I'm not able to be there present with you in person at church, I just want to take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy and a wonderful Christmas and holiday time. I hope you have great time with your families and lots of lovely food and gifts. And thank you so much for joining us as we share this Christmas story together.